Just days before my wedding, my older sister demanded that I hand over my wedding fund for her IVF because a child is more important than a party. When I refused, she branded me selfish, child-hating, and rallied the family to boycott. It all started 2 weeks before my wedding. The day that was supposed to be the culmination of a decade of dreaming, planning, and saving. My name is Olivia, I'm 32, and for the past 2 years, my fiancé Michael, 34, and I have been meticulous with our finances. I'm talking about living on a budget that would make a spreadsheet jealous. We skipped vacations, ate at home more than we ever thought possible, and tracked every single dollar as if it were a rare and endangered species. Our friends would tease us, calling us boring, but they didn't get it. This wasn't about being cheap. It was about building a future, brick by boring, financially responsible brick. Our dream wasn't about extravagance, but about a single, perfect day that we could say was truly, unequivocally ours. We wanted a wedding that wasn't just a party. We wanted a celebration of our journey, a tribute to the life we were building together, a beautiful, unforgettable memory to mark our official beginning. The total budget wasn't astronomical by any means. In fact, for a 2-year-long effort, it was surprisingly modest. But to us, it was everything. Every sacrificed coffee run, every movie night in, every worn-out pair of jeans we refused to replace was a small contribution to that single, breathtaking goal. It was our dream, paid for with our blood, sweat, and tears. And with only 2 weeks to go, everything was perfect. The venue was booked, the menu was set, and the wedding dress. Oh, that dress. It was a masterpiece of lace and silk, the one I had tried on and just knew was it. The one that made me feel like the main character in my own fairy tale, not just a side character in someone else's story. That day, we decided to host a small get-together at our place. It was a relaxed evening, just our parents and my older sister, Sophia. We wanted to do a mini preview, to show them some of the decor we'd been working on and to have my final dress fitting in front of them. The air was buzzing with excitement. Fairy lights we'd strung ourselves twinkled softly, casting a warm glow on the hand-painted place cards and the small, rustic centerpieces. Michael had just put on our wedding playlist, a mix of Motown and classic rock, and the whole house felt alive with anticipation. My mom gasped when she saw the dress. "Oh, Olivia," she whispered, her hands clasped to her chest. "It's even more beautiful than you described." My dad, a man of few words, had this huge, proud smile on his face. He kept nodding, as if to himself, as I twirled around, the lace flowing behind me. Even Sophia, my 36-year-old sister, who had always been a little hard to read, seemed genuinely impressed. "Wow, Liv," she said, her voice softer than usual. "It's really beautiful. I can't believe it's all coming together." It was a rare moment of genuine warmth from her, and I soaked it in, thinking that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a new chapter for all of us. Maybe the years of quiet competition were finally over. After dinner, Michael, being the amazing partner he is, started clearing the table, a gentle gesture that always made me love him a little more. My parents and Sophia stayed seated, and my mom patted the spot next to her. "Olivia," she said, her voice unusually serious. "We need to have a little family chat." My stomach immediately did a nervous flip. I knew that tone. It was the tone of an impending lecture, or a difficult conversation about some family drama that had nothing to do with me but would inevitably become my problem. It was the tone that preceded every difficult conversation from my childhood, a prelude to a demand I was expected to accept without question. Then, the bombshell dropped. My mom started it, her words carefully chosen, but the intent painfully clear. "This wedding is lovely, honey. Truly. But don't you think it's a little extravagant? All this money for one day? We were thinking, maybe you could do something smaller, more intimate. Just the courthouse, perhaps, and a simple dinner for close family." My heart, which had been so full of joy just moments before, began to sink. "Mom, we've been planning this for years," I said, my voice thin, a tremor of panic in my chest. "This is our dream. It's what we've worked for." But before I could even finish, Sophia started to cry. Not a quiet, dignified cry, but the full-blown sobbing and sniffling kind that she always used to get her way. She had perfected it over the years, a performance so polished it was almost art. She would wring her hands, her shoulders would shake, and the tears would flow exactly on cue. "I've tried so hard," she choked out between sobs, looking at me with eyes swimming with tears. "The IVF? It's failed again. The doctors said I need one more cycle, but the cost, it's just so much. I don't know what to do." Her words hung in the air, a silent plea that was more like a command. The pity party had officially begun, and I was the reluctant guest of honor. Then my dad, the man who had always been my rock, spoke up, and his words were the most gut-wrenching of all. "Your mother and I have talked it over," he said, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "We think you should give your sister the wedding fund." A grandchild is far more important than a party. You two can just do a small, simple wedding or postpone it altogether. After all, you have your whole lives ahead of you. Sophia, she doesn't have that kind of time. Michael, who had stopped in his tracks, his hands full of dirty plates, was the first to react. His face was a mask of disbelief and quiet fury. "What?" he said, his voice low and incredulous. "Absolutely not. This is not just a party, Mr. Anderson. This is our wedding. We worked for this. We saved for this. This is our dream." His refusal was polite but firm, and it only seemed to infuriate my parents. I tried to explain that this was more than just a party. It was a symbolic start to our new life, a public declaration of our commitment. But they weren't listening. Their eyes were fixed on Sophia, whose sobbing had intensified, as if on cue. They saw only her pain, not our future. I looked at my sister, expecting some sign of recognition, some hint of shame, but there was nothing. Just the same self-pitying expression I had seen 1,000 times before. This wasn't just a random request. This was a pattern, an ingrained dynamic that had been the backdrop of my entire life. My older sister, Sophia, the golden child, had always been the center of my parents' universe. Anything she wanted, anything she needed, she got. I remember her 5th birthday when she wanted a specific, rare doll. My parents spent weeks searching for it, while I got a simple jigsaw puzzle for my own birthday the following year. I remember her getting a brand new car for her 16th birthday, while I had to work 2 part-time jobs all through high school to save up for a beat-up used one. They had indulged her every whim, defended her every mistake, and placed her on a pedestal so high I could barely see her. I was the reliable one, the independent one, the one who didn't need their help, because I never got it. Sophia's life had always been a series of dramatic events. She married late, at 34, to a man who, to this day, seems to exist only to nod along with whatever she says. Her struggle with fertility, while genuinely heartbreaking, had become her entire identity. Every failed IVF cycle was a new tragedy, a new reason for her and my parents to demand emotional and, as it turned out, financial support from anyone within earshot. It was as if her desperation gave her a license to take what she wanted, to see the world as a tool to fix her problems, and my parents were her enablers. They truly believed that because I wasn't having children, something that was our conscious choice, not a painful medical reality, I couldn't possibly understand her sacrifice or grief. They saw our hard-earned wedding fund not as our property, but as a resource to be allocated to the family member who needed it most. "You're so selfish, Olivia," my dad had once said to me, completely unprompted, after Sophia had a bad day. "You're spending all that money on a pointless party while your sister is living for the family, trying so hard to give us a grandchild." The comparisons were constant, relentless, and soul-crushing. To them, Sophia was a martyr, and I was a prodigal daughter, squandering my future on something so frivolous as my own happiness. The immediate fallout was a storm of epic proportions. The moment Michael and I stood our ground, the masks came off, my mom's face contorted with anger. Her jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscles twitching. My dad's lips thinned into a hard, unforgiving line. Sophia, no longer just crying, started to scream. "You're so disrespectful," my mom shrieked. "How can you be so selfish? We are your family." My dad chimed in. "You don't care about your sister at all. This is heartless. Do you even know what it's like to want a child so badly you'd do anything?" The words flew at us like daggers, each one designed to hit a nerve, to make us feel guilty, ashamed, and small. But nothing compared to Sophia's final venomous words as she stormed out of our house. "You two are child haters," she screamed. "You're stealing our family's hope. I can't believe you do this to me. You're not even a real part of this family, are you?" They left in a fury, slamming the door behind them so hard the picture frame on our wall rattled. The house, which had been filled with laughter and a sense of happy anticipation just an hour earlier, now felt cold and hollow, a crime scene of a family betrayal. Michael and I stood there, speechless, in the wreckage of what had been a beautiful evening. We didn't even have time to process it before the text started. The flying monkeys had been activated. My phone buzzed and chimed relentlessly, a cacophony of digital judgment. Texts from aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years started pouring in, all with the same accusatory tone, as if they had been handed a script written by my mother. "I can't believe how cruel you're being. What happened to family first? Sophia's going through something you can't even imagine. A party is nothing compared to a baby. Are you really going to let your selfishness destroy your sister's chance at happiness? Shame on you. I always knew you were a cold person, but this is a new low, Olivia. You're a monster. Think about your parents' feelings. They just want a grandchild." My heart was pounding. I felt sick to my stomach. These were people who had watched me grow up, who I had celebrated holidays with, and now they were condemning me based on a one-sided, distorted story. I tried to explain to one of my cousins, the one I had always been closest to, but her response was just a curt, "Don't bother. We all know the truth." Michael, bless his heart, grabbed my phone and started blocking numbers. "We're not going to let them do this to us," he said, his voice full of resolve, his hand tracing the back of my neck. "They're not worth it. We have each other." But even with his comfort, the damage was done. We were completely isolated, cast out, our wedding now tainted by this dark cloud of familial betrayal. The dream was still there, but the joy had been sucked right out of it. The wedding, our beautiful, perfect day, suddenly felt heavy and tainted. The real escalation came a week later, when the initial shock had begun to wear off, and we were trying to salvage what little peace of mind we had left. The phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, and the person on the other end introduced herself as a community health official. I assumed it was a wrong number at first, but then she said the words that made my blood run cold. "We've received a report of concerns regarding your mental health, Ms. Anderson." The report mentioned paranoid ideation and verbally abusive behavior towards your family. My jaw dropped. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Michael, who was standing beside me, grabbed my hand, his grip tight and reassuring. I stammered, I don't know what you're talking about." The official, her voice flat and professional, continued. "The report claims you've been having a mental breakdown, screaming and crying during a recent family dispute. It also states you have delusional thoughts, believing your family is conspiring against you to steal your wedding." The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, and the horrifying picture came into focus. Only my parents and Sophia were present for that conversation. They weren't just boycotting our wedding. They were actively trying to discredit and destroy me. I couldn't even bring myself to be angry. I was just numb with disbelief. "Who made this report?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The official, of course, couldn't reveal her source, but the details she shared were specific enough to confirm my worst fears. She said the person who reported me believed that our refusal to grant their reasonable request was proof of my unstable thinking and lack of sound judgment. She even hinted that Michael was being manipulated by me, turning him against my own flesh and blood. It was a vicious, calculated attack. They were using the system against us, trying to paint me as an unhinged, dangerous person who wasn't in her right mind. They weren't just trying to hurt me. They were trying to erase my credibility, to make everyone believe that I was the villain, the mentally unstable one, not them. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. This was no longer a family spat. This was an all-out war. They were trying to strip me of my credibility, my agency, even my sanity, just because I said no to a completely unreasonable demand. We sat on the couch in stunned silence. Michael finally spoke, his voice low. "They went this far," he said, almost to himself. "They actually called a government agency. I can't believe it." The sense of betrayal was so deep it felt physical, like a sharp pain in my chest. We knew we couldn't just brush this off. Our future, our reputation, even our safety was at risk. We knew we couldn't handle this on our own. This was well beyond the scope of a family disagreement. We immediately contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Carter, who specialized in family law. She had a reputation for being a shark, and we knew we needed one. We laid out the entire story, from the initial demand to the phone call from the health official. We brought a stack of screenshots and transcripts, a grim archive of their digital assault. She listened patiently, her face a mask of professional neutrality. She didn't show any shock or pity, just a cold, methodical interest. When we finished, she sat back in her chair and took a deep breath. "This," she said, her voice grave, "is a serious case of defamation and malicious harassment. This isn't just a dispute. This is a targeted campaign to undermine your credibility and reputation. It's an attempt to legally and socially isolate you. And it's a criminal act." She immediately laid out a plan of action. "First, you need to document absolutely everything. Every text, every email, every missed call from your family, and their flying monkeys, as you call them. Get screenshots, save the messages, and put them all in a folder. We need a clear timeline of their demands and the ensuing harassment." We had already done a good job of this instinctively, but hearing a professional confirm its importance made us feel like we were at least doing something right. "Second," she continued, "you need to cooperate fully with community health services. Do not be defensive. Be calm, polite, and provide them with your evidence. Show them the texts where your family demanded the money. Provide proof of your stable jobs, your healthy financial situation. This will demonstrate that your decision was a sound, rational one, not a product of paranoid thinking. This will turn their weapon against them. Third," she said, her eyes meeting mine, "you are to go no contact. Block their numbers, block their social media. Do not engage. Do not respond to their accusations. Any communication from now on must go through me. Let me be the wall between you and their toxicity. This was the hardest part. The part of me that still wanted to be loved by my family, that wanted them to see reason, was devastated by the thought of cutting them out completely. But I knew she was right. Any further interaction would only be used as fuel for their fire. So we did it. We blocked them all. The silence that followed was jarring, but also, for the first time in weeks, peaceful. So we became meticulous record keepers. We created a separate folder on my laptop, a digital archive of their cruelty. The screenshots were a painful reminder of what they had done. I read over their messages, their accusations, and for the first time, I didn't feel shame or guilt. I felt a cold, quiet rage. They had betrayed me in the most fundamental way, not just by trying to take our money, but by trying to strip me of my identity. To break me down to nothing. It was no longer about a wedding fund. It was about our very right to exist, to make our own choices, to build our own lives. Ms. Carter called us a few days later with an update. She had looked over the evidence and had confirmed her initial assessment. This is a malicious and coordinated effort to cause you emotional and financial distress, she said. We have more than enough to defend you and, if necessary, to go on the offensive. The phrase, go on the offensive, sent a shiver down my spine, but it was also a little thrilling. We were no longer on the defensive, cowering from the attacks. We were preparing for a fight. The quiet before the storm was almost worse than the storm itself. The calls and texts had stopped completely, which was a relief. But it was an unnatural silence. I knew they were plotting something. They couldn't just have given up. My parents and Sophia were not the kind of people who would simply accept defeat. The feeling of dread was always there. A little knot in my stomach that would tighten every time my phone buzzed or a car drove past the house. We were constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was hard to focus on the final wedding preparations. Every time I looked at a guest list, I was reminded of the gaping holes where my family's names should have been. Every time I thought about my dad walking me down the aisle, I was hit with a wave of sadness. The joy of the wedding was slowly being overshadowed by the pain of this conflict. Michael was my rock, constantly reminding me that this was our wedding, and that it would be a beautiful day no matter what. He kept me grounded, reminding me that we were doing the right thing, and that no amount of money could ever justify this kind of betrayal. The battle ended, not with a whimper, but with a foolish, desperate roar. As Ms. Carter had predicted, they ignored her cease and desist letter. My parents probably told Sophia it was just bullying and a scare tactic. They were used to getting their way, to having their demands met, and this was no different. They truly believed they were in the right, and that we were just a nuisance to be dealt with. So, with my parents' full support and encouragement, Sophia actually filed a lawsuit against us. The charges were so ludicrous, I almost laughed when Ms. Carter told me. Sophia accused us of emotional abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and financial damages for the money she had already spent on her failed IVF cycles. Her claim was that our refusal to help had caused her a complete mental and emotional breakdown, and that we were responsible for the money she had wasted in her previous attempts. It was a Hail Mary pass, a final, desperate attempt to take what she believed was owed to her. It was so transparently retaliatory and unfounded that I was almost impressed by the audacity. This wasn't about family. It was a financial gambit, a cold, hard play for a payday. The courtroom was a sterile, impersonal place, filled with uncomfortable wooden benches and a quiet, tense energy. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and dust. I sat beside Michael and Ms. Carter, our hands clasped together under the table. My parents sat with Sophia and her husband, all of them looking stern and self-righteous, as if they were the victims here. Sophia wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back tightly, giving her a look of mournful dignity. My mom kept dabbing her eyes with a tissue, even though no tears were falling. It was a masterclass in performative victimhood. Their lawyer, a slick, overconfident man in a perfectly tailored suit, laid out their case. He spoke in a slow, dramatic cadence, his voice full of feigned sympathy. He painted us as a couple of heartless, greedy individuals who cared more about a frivolous party than about the sacred bond of family. He spoke of Sophia's noble quest for motherhood and her utter devastation at our refusal. He tried to frame our actions as a betrayal so profound it caused her mental anguish. Your Honor, he intoned, this isn't just a simple disagreement over money. This is a story of two people who chose to prioritize their own shallow desires over the deepest human longing of a beloved family member. They chose to let a chance at a legacy, a grandchild, a future for this family simply vanish. It was a ridiculous and overly dramatic performance, and I could feel my blood pressure rising with every lie he told. I wanted to stand up and scream, to tell the judge the truth, but Michael's gentle squeeze on my hand kept me grounded. But then, Ms. Carter got up to speak. She was calm, professional, and devastatingly effective. She didn't engage with the emotional drama. She stuck to the facts, presenting them with the precision of a surgeon. She started by presenting the documentation. "Your Honor," she said, her voice echoing through the silent courtroom, "we have here a series of text messages and emails from the plaintiffs dating back to 2 weeks ago. In these messages, they explicitly and repeatedly demand that my clients, Olivia and Michael, hand over their life savings, money they have saved for years for their wedding, to fund the plaintiff's IVF treatment. There is no mention of a loan, no offer to repay. It is a demand, plain and simple, followed by a campaign of public and private harassment when that demand was refused." She projected the screenshots onto a large screen for everyone to see. The cold, demanding words of my parents and Sophia, so hurtful when I first read them, now looked pathetic and entitled in the harsh courtroom light. Then, she presented the most damning evidence of all. "Furthermore, Your Honor," she continued, "the plaintiff's campaign of harassment escalated to the point of filing a fraudulent report with Community Health Services, falsely claiming my client had a severe mental breakdown with paranoid and delusional thoughts. She then called the community health official to the stand. The woman, professional and unbiased, testified that she had investigated the report and had found no evidence of any mental health issues whatsoever. My report concluded," she stated, "that the original complaint was unfounded and showed signs of malicious intent." I saw my mom and Sophia exchange a panicked glance. The slick lawyer from the other side sputtered, trying to object, but the judge overruled him. Ms. Carter then presented our financial records, our employment histories, our character references. She painted a picture of two normal, well-adjusted adults who were simply preparing for a new phase in their lives when they were suddenly targeted by a family that felt entitled to their money. It was a complete and systematic dismantling of every single claim Sophia and my parents had made. The courtroom was silent. You could hear a pin drop. The judge's expression grew more and more severe with each piece of evidence Ms. Carter presented. The verdict was swift and unequivocal. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a stern face, looked at my parents and Sophia with a look of utter disgust. Her voice, when she spoke, was a low, powerful rumble that filled the room. "This court," she said, "is not a tool for family disputes. The plaintiff's claims are not only without merit, they are a gross abuse of the legal system. To use the justice system to retaliate against a family member who has simply chosen to live their life as they see fit is a despicable act. This court will not tolerate such behavior. The plaintiff's case is dismissed with prejudice." My parents' faces went pale. Sophia looked like she had just been slapped. But that wasn't all. The sweet karma came in the form of her final ruling. In light of the frivolous nature of this lawsuit and the clear evidence of malicious intent, the judge declared the plaintiffs are ordered to pay all legal fees incurred by the defendants, Ms. Olivia and Mr. Michael. My parents' mouths fell open. Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. The same money they had tried to steal from us was now going to be used to pay our legal bills. It was a poetic justice so perfect, it almost felt scripted. And for the final nail in the coffin, Ms. Carter had a final request. "Your Honor, we would also like to request a 2-year restraining order against the plaintiffs to ensure the safety and well-being of my clients, especially on their upcoming wedding day." The judge granted it without a second thought. For the next 2 years, they couldn't come within 100 feet of us, and that included showing up at our wedding. The judge's ruling was not just a legal victory. It was a complete and total validation of our actions, a public rebuke of their toxic behavior, and the final definitive ending to a painful chapter. We had won. Not just the case, but our freedom. We went completely no contact. The grief of losing my family was real and deep, but it was quickly replaced by a profound sense of peace. The day of our wedding was everything we had dreamed of, and more. It wasn't the ceremony with my parents and sister present, but it was filled with so much love from our true friends and Michael's amazing, supportive family. My best friend, Maya, walked me down the aisle, her arm linked in mine, her smile a beacon of pure joy. I've never felt so loved and proud. The air was light, free of the tension and drama that had suffocated us for so long. We danced, we laughed, and we celebrated with people who genuinely cared about our happiness. It was the most perfect day of my life. I've learned a hard and painful lesson. The saying, "blood is thicker than water," is a lie we tell ourselves to justify toxic behavior. Sometimes, family isn't about the people you're born to, but the people you choose, the ones who lift you up, who celebrate your joy, and who stand by you when the people who are supposed to love you the most try to tear you down. My wedding wasn't just a party. It was a symbol of our new beginning, and it became a testament to our strength, our love, and our unwavering commitment to each other, even when we had to face the unthinkable. My real family now is Michael, and the people we have chosen to share our lives with. And for that, I wouldn't trade all the money in the world.